Welcome to Season 3 of Love and Murder. In today's episode, we have a very special guest for you. But on a darker note, we're telling a case of a little girl gone missing. The police think the answer is right under their nose. But are they as sure as they think they are? It's the case of Victoria Tori Stafford, right now on Love and Murder. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Season 3 of Love and Murder, the weekly true crime podcast. I know y'all missed hearing that because we've been gone for like 2-3 weeks. Anyway, the weekly true crime podcast discussing relationships gone terribly wrong, where our motto is you're either someone's last love or their first murder. I am your host, Kai, and I have a very special guest here for you today, only for this episode and for a reason. Let us welcome the illustrious, the gorgeous, the beautiful Sharae!
Hello, good people. I am
Apparently,
back.
with that applause, they really missed you. So, Shar is here as a guest host for our very first episode of Season 3. Now, if you want to continue hearing the dynamic duo of Kai and Shar, you got to subscribe to our Patreon. Now, before you ask what's our Patreon, first of all, how do you not know what our Patreon is? But anyways, we will discuss that later on in just a little bit of what Shar and Kai are doing. But Rick will be back for our regularly scheduled program next episode next week. And let's just get into what Love and Murder is real quick for the newbies out there. So, if you're new here, our show discusses true crime cases told in the form of a story with mystery and suspense. Now, sometimes we may do a little bit of humor, but it is never at the expense of the victim. Be sure to subscribe to Love and Murder on whatever platform you're on, as well as give us a 5-star review. Y'all already know we've been asking for this for like 2 years. Go to whatever platform, 5 stars. If you're new here, listen, of course, first, and then rate us 5 stars. And also, welcome. You're much appreciated.
Absolutely.
In today's episode, we're talking about a horrible, terrible, no good, very bad, terrible case that I'm going to tell you to sit down, grab your butts, grab your apple juice, and be prepared for this one. It's going to have a lot of y'all's jaws on the floor. I'm telling you, it's a terrible case. But first, as I was talking about our Patreon, Kai and Shar, because I'm speaking about us in the third person for some odd reason, Kai and Shar are going to be doing a new segment over there where we discuss court cases and we just kind of react on it. So you'll actually see video. It'll be Kai and Shar, and it is only for our Patreon subscribers. So if you want to hear this, head on over to our Patreon, www.patreon.com/love and murder, and become an exclusive Lamb member. Over on Patreon, you get Serial Killer Corner, you get Crazy Crime, you get to know more about the host. And in Season 3, we have so much more coming up. A lot of people have been asking me about like some of the recipes because they know I cook and everything like that.
That sounds like fun,
I'm going to be doing some cooking on there. Just, a lot of fun things. So go on over to our Patreon, www.patreon.com/love and murder, and become a subscriber of the most popular tier is $5 and above. But we do have tiers starting at only $1. If you want to catch Kai and Shar, the dynamic duo once again, catch us on our Patreon. Oh, and also in this episode, we won't ask Shar what she's been doing, but if you want to find out where Shar's been, head on over to our Patreon. She tells you all about it over there. That was our last mini bonus episode that we talked about.
Yeah, I'll spill all the juicy details. Well, some of them anyway.
So now we're going to get on to this show, and Shar, the lovely Shar, is joining us tonight, like I said. This show is about Tori Stafford. Well, Victoria Stafford, but they call her Tori Stafford. So we're going to start roll it on back as we normally do and start at the very, very beginning. Terry Lynn McClintock was born in 1990 in Woodstock. And this whole thing takes place in Canada. So this is not Woodstock, Georgia.
Oh,
This is
not our
Woodstock, Canada.
Woodstock. Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah,
was
no.
wondering.
So she was born to question mark because her mother's name was never given. Her father's name was never given. But her mom was a stripper. And as soon as she was born, her mother handed her over to her best friend, whose name was
Whoa.
Carol McClintock, and her best friend, who was a fellow stripper, raised Terry Lynn. I guess she named her and everything because her name is Terry Lynn McClintock, which is named after the best friend. So her mom didn't even want her from birth, handed her over to her best friend and was like, you raise her, and that was it. So when Terry Lynn was actually 9 months old, Carol officially adopted her, and, they just lived together as mother and child. And over the next
That's
few
really
years,
strange. Wow.
you think that's strange? I mean, not necessarily.
No,
You
I
don't
think
know.
okay, so because the mother, the birth mother, I thought at first maybe she felt like, oh, look at my lifestyle. It's not good for a child. And so I'm going to ask my friend to adopt her. But her friend does the same thing. So how is it that your friend can take care of the child and you can't? That's why that's really
I
strange to
mean,
me. Don't you
probably the
agree?
friend wanted a child and she just didn't want a child. She probably just
Well,
wanted to continue on with her life. So that's what happened. So,
yeah.
I mean, I guess in some sense it's strange, but for them it worked out, I guess. I don't know. Now, over the next few years, the two lived all over Ontario, Canada. Canada?
Not Canada. Sorry, Canada. We didn't mean that. We didn't mean it.
They lived all over Ontario, and actually moved every couple of years, kind of like they were in the military without being in the military. They
Right.
lived in Gulf, and I think that's how it's spelled, is Guelph. So I think Gulf, maybe Gulf. That sounds German. So
That does sound
Hamilton,
German.
North Bay, Parry Sound, and Muskoka. So she went to school. She went to so many different schools. And at school, she says that she was bullied because people would make fun of her because she was a stripper's daughter. So that was the whole thing that they made fun of her for.
Wow.
Now, she was described, and I guess it stemmed because of the cruelty of children and the abandonment of her mom and everything like that. But she was described as cruel and violent for almost her entire life.
Wow,
When she
that's a
was just
shame.
a child, she put a dog in a microwave, and then later the dog had to be put down. But then she lied about it and said the dog was hurt at another place. But it all came out and it was just she put a dog in a microwave. Who does that?
Oh,
I
wow.
I can't even imagine.
I can't. No, no. Ugh.
So when she was about 4 or 5, it was actually revealed that she was molested. But then her adopted mother, Carol, said that as soon as she found out about it, she stopped it, which some parents don't do. So I guess that's a good thing that she completely put a stop to it. But still, it's really bad that 4 or 5
That
she
it
was molested.
happened. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I feel that's terrible. Which, with all of this, that kind of explains why she was so terrible, meaning why she was
Yeah,
so
she was really
cruel. She was
trouble.
lashing
Hmm.
out.
Yeah, exactly.
When she was
Classic
about
case.
7 and living in Gulf. Now, if that's not how you say it, Canada, I am sorry.
Please chime in the comments, guys. Let us know. Because
Yeah, is
we
it
can
Gulf?
butcher a
When we're
city
just
sometimes. It's not intentional.
Are we just ignoring the E so it's Gulf, or is it Gulf? I really want to know. I seriously want to know. Guelph. So, anyways, when she was about 7, at this time they were living in Gulf. Children's Age, which is CPS for us Americans, started looking at her, started really like observing what was going on with her. And I guess they were observing her because of how she was acting in school and stuff. Now, check this out. At only 8 years old, she started doing drugs. At 8 years
What?
old.
Oh, I
Yes. I can't even
I mean,
imagine.
why have
So,
parents? Why have a parent if you really have to raise yourself? So it's like all the examples you've given us of dysfunction so far. I'm still asking myself, where was the adopted parent? Like even the dog in the microwave. How do you not know that your child is putting the dog in the microwave? Like, how do you just not know these things are happening? So how do you not know that your 8-year-old, well, it even has access to drugs? Now, if you're doing drugs and they have access, that's really sad. But
But
it's
you're
like,
assuming that the parent is not around. She could
yeah,
just
of
really
course I'm
be
assuming
having,
that. Yes, I
yeah, but
am.
she's a single mother, and this daughter started out her life with her mom not wanting her. So she already feels abandoned, and then at school the children are making fun of her, and that doesn't necessarily mean that her mom's nowhere to be found, but you cannot watch your child 24/7.
Oh, well,
So,
there is that.
anyways, at
Mm.
8 she started doing weed, and then slowly but surely she moved up to harder drugs. And then for the next 10 years, she hasn't even started her life yet. 10 years? She's only 18.
18,
For the
yeah.
next Exactly, for the next 10 years she would be a heavy drug addict. Wow.
Wow.
So she also not all of this is going on, but then she also lived in 2 foster homes. So I guess CPS, or what do they call it in Canada? Children's Aid, took her away from Carol. So she lived in about 2 foster homes. It may be more. And she lived in detention centers because from the age of 12 to 17, she'd actually been in and out of juvie because of fighting, and just she ended up being convicted of assault at least 6 times. Again, this goes back to the whole anger. She was just really angry. And
Yeah.
fueling that with drugs wasn't really helping. Then, even though she was in juvie, basically, she just kept getting in trouble. She would fight people in juvie. She wrote these letters and diary entries, and in them she was threatening like the people who did her wrong. If you did her wrong, if you, I don't know, tripped on her shoelace, and she just
And you end
figured
up in
that,
her
why did you?
book and her secret diary,
Exactly.
like of who I'm going to kill next.
So it's funny
Wow.
that you said kill. She would actually use the word slaughter. She would say she would slaughter someone. And at one point in time, she would talk about ripping out each of their bones. And then she
Whoa.
would sign these by saying murderous with a Z. So murderers, bitches with a Z. And that's just how she called herself and a friend of hers. So they were the murderous bitches, I guess. I
I'm
don't know.
sorry to laugh, but it's like it's almost like you just can't really believe it. Like people really live this way. And these are
Oh,
children.
this ain't nothing.
And
You it's gonna get
uh
worse.
uh
In 2006, when she was 16, Terry Lynn ended up getting into a fight with Carol, and she punched her adopted mother in the eye and caused her to go blind in that eye. That's how
that's
hard
pretty
she
hard
punched
punch.
her,
That's pretty hard.
dude. And then in 2008, her and Carol, they moved into a rundown 2-bedroom house in Woodstock. And in true addict fashion, the first people Terry Lynn got to know were the drug dealers of that town. She didn't know
Of
anybody else. She
course.
didn't have any friends, but she found out where the
But
drug
she
dealers
found
were.
them. Hmm.
Exactly. And became really close with them. Now, moving on to the next person in this story. Michael Rafferty was born in 1980, also in Woodstock, Canada, to, well, they only gave his mom's name, which was Deborah Murphy. They really didn't talk about his father, but they just said he was born to Deborah Murphy. And as a child, Michael spent some years with an aunt and uncle in Drayton, which was a village about 31 miles or 50 kilometers northwest of Guelph. Everybody described him as being like a really good looking, handsome guy. They said, quote, boyish good looks. I don't even know what that means, boyish good
Yeah, I
looks,
always
but
wondered about that. Does it mean like youthful, young?
maybe. And that they also said that he was very charming. Now, keep this in mind that he was very charming and good looking, because you're going to need this information throughout the story.
Okay.
In 1995, when he was a teenager, he moved and went to Alexander McKinsey High School in Richmond Hill. This is a place near Richmond Hill that's like near Toronto. So, if you don't know where Richmond Hill is, I know most people know where Toronto is.
Toronto. Mm-hmm.
And so he lived there from September 95 to March of 96. So basically between the time he was 15 to like 16. And while he was there in his teenage years, 15 to 16, he partied hard. He partied like it was 1999, even though it was 1996. And his friends would say that he was often seen at bars and with women and just stuff that like a 15, 16-year-old shouldn't be doing, but
I was
he
gonna
was doing
say,
it.
he sounds like an old man, like he's just out there in the
Dude.
streets.
And then the thing is, even though he didn't even have a job, he always was dressed in the latest fashion, the most expensive clothes, and all of this stuff. So, how do you think he got these clothes? Like, this was it all these women from the bar and stuff like that? What do you
I
think?
mean, it probably the 5 finger discount. Why not? He's breaking all these other rules and, like stealing.
I mean, I understand what the 5 finger discount is, but you think it wasn't the women that he charmed into giving the clothes? Like, we're giving him money
I
or
mean,
buying
but
the
who
clothes
does
directly
that?
for him?
Who is that like a thing for a guy to charm a woman so that he can get close? Well, I guess maybe so.
I was about to say, where have you been? Anyway, at this time, he was also addicted to Oxycontin. So he's on
Great.
drugs as well, partying hard, womanizing and I don't know, asking women for money or something, but at the same time on drugs. Now, sometime between 2002 and 2003, he moved to Gulf. I really hope I'm saying this right. Every time
I
I say it, I'm
know.
like,
I'm
am I
like,
saying this right?
we just cannot continue to not know. We need to know.
So he moved to Gulf between 2002 and 2003. So he was like 22, 23 at the time. And when he moved to Gulf, he worked for a meat packing plant over there. Around that time, he met a woman named Jennifer Wilstra, who was somebody who was trying to be a veterinarian. And they dated and lived together until September 2005. So that's about 2 years. And this woman liked to keep, like, she never missed a day of writing in her diary. And what she talked about was how their relationship was. She talked about, the good, the bad, and everything like that. And that, he basically never had money. He was always between jobs and stuff like this. But all in all, there was nothing like prolific about the relationship. It's not like he cut up her pet bird and was like, here's Polly for dinner. Like, he didn't do anything that you would be like, how
Like
are you with
really
this guy?
just, yeah, just
Yeah, it
drastic
was just a regular
and dysfunctional
relationship.
or yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, with its ups and downs or whatever, like every relationship. So on the weekend of February 14th, one of the things that Jennifer talked about was that Michael had surprised her with a trip to Toronto where they stayed at the Sheraton, went to a play, and partied and just had fun. So she's saying, this is the best time of her life. He surprised her with this awesome gift, whatever. Remember, I said he was charming. However, all this time, Michael was cheating on her. So this came out from a
Wow.
friend who both knew him and Jennifer.
Oh,
And
wow.
his friends were like, Michael basically cheated on everyone. Quote, he was always whining to me about his girlfriend and how she was going to leave him because he always effed up. He was always cheating on her. She'd go home and he'd stay at the bar. The next day, he'd wonder why she was mad at him. End quote. Really? Why she's mad at him? Really? Okay. But
So he just keeps floozies around on the side. It's to him, it's just like
according to
water.
his friends, according to his friends, he was always cheating on her. And I guess she knew, but she stuck around. So I don't know. Maybe that's why they only lasted, like 2 years or something?
Yeah,
So
that's
4
crazy.
months after they broke up, you ready for this?
I'm holding my breath.
4 months after they broke up, he used, I don't know if y'all remember LimeWire back in the day. Now
I remember that name.
I know the newer generation won't know this. Basically, when you wanted to get something for free, like a movie for free or music for free, you would have to like,
Yeah, I do remember
it
that.
was like
Yeah.
literally you were stealing it and you had to download it. People would have
Mm-hmm.
like the movie and they would burn it. I don't even know if children nowadays know what burning is. They would burn it and then they would upload it to their computer and then they
Yeah,
would
they
share it
can
with
sell it
everyone.
too.
It was really an illegal practice and a lot of people got charged. They went to jail or they had to pay fines.
Yeah,
Anyways, I
yeah.
know we don't have that now because everything's streaming everywhere, but back in the day, we didn't have that. So, 4 months after he broke up with Jennifer, he used LimeWire to download child pornography. Girl. Then in March 2008, him and his mom, well, he moved to Woodstock to live with his mom and her then boyfriend, David Riddle, and their 4 cats. I like how they included 4 cats
The
in that. We
cats,
had
I
to
love
know there were 4
it.
cats. Yeah. Then in
Yeah.
April 2008, he met a woman named Charity Spitzig. Yeah, that's her last name, Spitzig. Charity Spitzig. She was a mother of 4 and she was 22 years old. By this time, he
Wow.
was using the dating app called Plenty of Fish. Is that still around? But
Oh,
anyway,
definitely. It's definitely still around.
yeah, Plenty of Fish. And that's how he met Charity. Charity said that they saw each other at least 3 times a week. And Michael said he was back in school, he was taking dance courses, and he was working in the home renovation business. She
Trying
thought
to turn his
they were
life
an
around, it sounds
exclusive
like.
relationship
Mm-hmm.
and she was ready to take it to the next step because he seemed like such a good guy. He was like, again, the word coming up, he was very charming. So,
Mm-hmm.
she thought this is the one. I found the one. So she wanted to get married. Now, this is where it takes a weird turn. They were having money problems, as sometimes couples do. Like, that's normal. Quote, we
Yeah.
discussed ways for finances to be made easier. Me getting into the escort business, which I did, and any monies from there went directly to him. What
Ooh,
does that
sounds like a
sound like to
pimp.
you? Exactly.
And I was like, we have a word for that.
Exactly, yeah. So from December 2008 to May 2009, she transferred $16,835 from her bank account to his bank account. She said she'd also given him cash, but she didn't know the total of how much cash she gave him. Cause you got to pay your pimp. I mean, he gonna smack you on the backside with the what is it?
Yeah,
The
you better
powder.
have my money.
Be better have my money. But that's
Yeah,
supposed to
because
be his
business was
girlfriend.
good, but business was good. 16,000, and it was in a very short time, right?
From December 2008 to May. So December,
Yeah,
January, February, March, April,
this
May. That was only 5 months.
yeah, okay. Wow.
$16,000.
Yeah, she
Dude,
was definitely business was really good, you know?
I'm in the wrong profession.
Right. I'm like, I think we should quit our day jobs right about now.
In February 2009, Michael met, remember, she thinks he's exclusive to her to the point that she decided that, hey, we're in financial difficulties. I'm going to go be an escort and give you all my money that I made. Now in 2009, okay, remember, from December 2008 to May 2009, she's given him all her money. In February 2009, he meets a woman named Terry Lynn McClintock, who we were talking about before.
We sure were.
So, but he met her at a New Orleans pizza outlet. And by this time, remember I told you Terry was already taking drugs and everything like this. She was taking antidepressants, popping oxycodone.
Gee, I
So
wonder
basically,
why.
they were both on oxycodone. So they had
Mm-hmm.
something in common,
In
I guess.
common. Mm-hmm.
And she was doing ecstasy. She was also
Oh, she took
injecting
it up a
morphine
notch.
and
Mm.
smoking weed. I don't understand
Phew.
how anybody injects anything into them.
I
Unless it's
mean,
like unless you have diabetes and you have to,
yeah,
then I
exactly. You
understand
have
you
to,
have to.
yeah.
But you
Mm-hmm.
make a choice to inject stuff in you? Again,
Yeah.
I guess I have to talk about people who are doing in vitro because that's a choice. Okay, I'm going to just shut up now.
Yeah, you're going down a long needle road here, okay, with syringes and all of that's a lot.
So, anyway, so even though he was with Charity and literally pimping her out, he is now with Terry Lynn as well. They started going out, and she believed that they were exclusive. And so did the three other women he was seeing at the
Mr.
time.
Charming.
Wow. And he was also seeing another woman named Jessica Melaki, who somehow, even though he was with all these people, he was living with her most of the time. So I wondered where everybody else thought he was when he was with Jessica.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I wonder what his little spiel was. No, because it sounds like a full-time job to keep
Right?
everyone somewhat happy,
I mean, I guess that's why he
but
wasn't working because that was his full-time
that's a
job.
job. That was it.
Exactly. And I mean, he's netting from this full-time job, he's netting about 16, 17,000. So
That's not
I
bad,
guess
considering you don't have to do anything at all, but
except
have
juggle women.
girlfriends.
So
Yeah,
he had like what, 4 women at this time.
that's
That's
amazing.
crazy. By the spring of 2009, Michael had met and went out with more than a dozen women. Wow. And Charity is still working for him. Wow. And now you know how people are like, well, I have a preference. I like tall women. I'm not going to date anybody that's like 10 years younger than me or more than 10 years older than me. I like black, white, I like big boobs or big butt or big thighs.
Yeah,
He
yeah, tall,
his
short,
only
blonde,
preference
brunette.
his only preference were that they were women. He didn't care the age. He didn't care the height. He didn't care if you had a job. He didn't care if you had children. Nothing. All he cared about was that you were on Plenty of Fish and that you were a woman. And that's literally it.
That's crazy.
Oh my God. So what? He started on Plenty of Fish on, let's see what date. In 2008, he started on Plenty of Fish. And
See, that's why I
between
was never on that
2008,
website, Kai, because of people like him. A lot of my friends
I've
were.
never been on any dating
It's a
website.
really popular one, and a lot of my friends
But
were on there.
between
But
2008
yeah,
and 2009, 1 year,
mm-hmm.
he'd already been out with dozens of women. That
I
is
don't know where he finds the
insane.
time. There's only so many hours in the day.
I mean, he don't have a job, so
But you got to sleep, Kai. You have to
I mean,
eat.
do
I
you?
mean, it's like
Do
he was
you?
literally just
I mean,
catch
really?
his
Do
breath.
you?
Okay, next. It sounds like an assembly line.
Yeah, that was his job, like I said, the assembly line of women. So, in that same year, 2009, he reconnected with an old friend named Alexis Lane, who was 30 at this time. They first met when they were in 6th grade in Drayton, and he did like her. He had a crush on her way back in 6th grade. So, he reconnected with her in 2009. He found her on Facebook and everything like that. And she agreed to go out with him and everything like that. I mean, last time she saw him, he was what? What are you in 6th grade? 12 or
Like a
something?
12?
Yeah.
You're a
And so,
super kid.
now
I
he's a
can't.
grown man. He's been through
Mhm.
about 56 women. So he's kind of perfected the charming role.
He's like a seasoned
So,
professional. Hmm.
right. So by this time, he knew exactly what to say and everything like that. So he got her to date him and they dated for about 6 weeks. He told his friends that she, Alexis, was the perfect woman. I mean, after 85 women, I have
How
found
do you
the one.
know?
After 160 women, I have found the one. So he wanted her and he hoped to marry her, but he
No.
still he still was cheating on her with other people. So I
What's
don't know
lots
what
of other
happened.
people.
It didn't say what happened, but they broke up a week before April 8th, 2009. So keep that
Hmm.
date in your mind. So they
Okay.
broke up just a week before April 8th, 2009. And I still don't understand how he's pulling all of this off. I don't understand it, but
Yeah, it is baffling. I mean, I've
that
heard of
is
an American
crazy.
gigolo. Oh, well, a Canadian gigolo.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's
But
still American because Canada is still in America. But It's not the
What?
United States of. Oh my God, are you really? Are you kidding me right
Are
now?
you serious? What are you talking about?
Canada is in North America. They are still Americans.
They're not considered American. No, you have to have a passport to go there. Are you
Oh my
okay?
God,
Okay,
are
guys, that's
you?
another show.
Wait. No, Canada is in North America,
But that's
which
not,
means
it's still not considered America, though. It's
it
not.
is considered America. It's not considered the United States of America. Like everybody
I've
from
never
North
heard anyone
America
say that
and
about
South America
Canada.
are Americans. Oh
No,
my God.
they're not. I mean, I know Canadian citizens. I've never heard them say that. That doesn't make sense. There's nothing American-ish about Canada
Shar,
except it just happens to be right
Shar,
above. It just happens to be right above, say, the
they are
Alaska and
Americans,
oh
just like Mexicans are Americans. Like I
no,
said,
sorry.
you're not from the United States of America, but you're still an American. Are you
I
serious right now?
can't wait to hear
Anybody
the
from
sound off on this. I can't wait to
anybody from
hear our comments because they're going to think you've lost it. And I promise you they'll be on my side.
Shar, Shar,
That is like
you're
the
in for a
weirdest
treat.
statement I've ever
So
heard.
that's anybody from Canada, anybody from Mexico, anybody from Argentina, Chile, anywhere there, Brazil even. That's Shar who's telling y'all that y'all are not Americans. You may
No.
direct your comments to her.
Okay. And I'm ready, willing, and waiting because that's just crazy. But nevertheless, anywho, we'll still call him the
like I
American
said,
Gigolo then.
like I said, April 8th, 2009. This is a
Mm-hmm.
date that we are going to remember.
We will.
So,
We shall.
on April 8th, 2009, at around 3:30 p.m., cute little 8-year-old Victoria Stafford, who they called Tori, left her Oliver Stevens public school to go home, which was only a 3-block walk. This was, quote, the very first day she was allowed to leave school and walk home by herself. So, she felt like a big girl. She was like, I'm a
Oh
big girl. I could
yeah.
make it home by
Mm-hmm.
myself. She was all proud. And in addition to that, that very night, she was going to have a quote room welcoming party. I called it that instead of a home warming party. So let's call it a room warming party in her new room in their new house. Her little friends were going to come on over and have a party like a pizza and everything like that to welcome her to her new room. And she
Fair
was
enough.
so
Sounds like
quote
fun.
excited by this prospect. So she dressed up for school that day, end quote. And to top off her outfit, her mom, Terry McDonald, allowed her to borrow her earrings. So she was wearing grown up earrings. She was walking home by her little self. Oh, you can't tell her nothing. She was just feeling good that day. Now, by 6:04 p.m., though, she still hadn't returned home. And so her grandmother ended up calling the cops and reported her missing. I remember one time my daughter took the wrong bus and I didn't know, and this was before she had a cell phone, and I went to pick her up at the bus stop and she wasn't there, and I
Wow.
couldn't even tell you the feeling. I couldn't
Your heart
when we
must have just
found
dropped
out
to
what
the
happened and
ground. Yeah.
I went to the school and I found her, whatever. I just started crying. And the people in the front office was looking at me like I was crazy. I was like, "Are you serious?"
Yeah, but
I
you're
just
like, but
started.
she wasn't on the bus. She wasn't on the bus. That
Yeah, I
is
don't care. My
terrifying.
emotions were too much. I don't care who was
Mm-hmm.
looking at me crazy. But anyways, so I can't imagine how her mom and her grandmother felt. And they probably were blaming themselves because this, like I said, this was the first day she's walking home alone. And they're like, we knew we shouldn't have done it. Oh my God.
Yeah. It
I
was
can't
too
even
soon.
imagine that feeling. So when the cops arrived, they were initially suspicious of Tara because they were like, okay, your child was supposed to have been home at like 3 something. Why did you wait till 6 to call us? So you waited all this time to call us. In addition to that, what spurred their suspicion was Tara wasn't working, which I don't know how that's making her suspicious, but whatever. She wasn't working. She was addicted to drugs and she hadn't gone out to search for her daughter. That's suspicious to me
It's
because
because she
five
was
two
too
seconds
high.
2 seconds after I found out my daughter was missing, I was out like driving around aimlessly, like, what to do? Ah.
Yeah, but you had
But
focus, but a person that's on drugs is not going to think clearly. You know,
well,
that's
yeah,
all
but
that
this
was.
so she didn't go out look for her daughter, and this is why the grandmother was the one who called the police, and the grandmother was the one who filed the missing persons report. So it's like, I
Wow, that's so
wonder,
sad.
it just seems like everybody in this story has something in common, and that's being addicted to drugs. That's
Yes,
so
it certainly
interesting.
is the common denominator. Like, I mean, who is not
Yeah,
high? Who's not high in the story like all day on ten
that's
different drugs? Like,
interesting.
too much.
So,
Crazy.
so they were initially suspicious of her mom, which when you go more into it, I can understand why. And then during the investigation, police pulled surveillance videos spanning from Tori's house all the way to the school. And on those videos, they saw that at 3:32 p.m. on that day, Tori was being led down 5th Avenue in Woodstock by a woman. And this woman was wearing a white winter coat and had dark hair that was in a ponytail. So when they saw this, they were like, that is Tara. They were completely just like, they just knew it was Tara, the mother. But they went out and spoke to the witnesses at the school, and they found out, no, that wasn't Tori's mother. That's not Tara. But they did see a woman walking with Tori, and these were just the other parents waiting for their kids to come out of school. So then my question is, why the hell didn't you stop? If you know this wasn't her mom, why didn't you
Yeah.
say something? Stop. So, quote, they thought nothing of it at the time. They assumed that Tori was with her family or a friend. After all, it was broad daylight. So, abductions doesn't happen in broad daylight? Like, what are you trying to say here?
Yeah, but I could see how it could have been an auntie or a cousin, a neighbor, just someone that she knew. I mean, another woman doesn't look suspicious. She
That's
just
the
does.
fallacy, and that's an issue.
Mhm.
That's sexism to me.
No,
Everybody's
no, not
suspicious.
really, because that's not your typical. When you're given a description of, a missing child and the last person they were seen with, you don't. I mean, if you see that, you're not going to think, "Oh, there's a lady, wearing a white coat. Something must be wrong." No, you're just going to think that, "Oh, okay, so she just went with her aunt." I don't even
Well,
think
I'm gonna
it's
put it this way.
sexist. I just think she doesn't look, you know, unsafe
I'm gonna put it
as say
this
a
way,
man
Lamb
would.
family. I'm not
Mm.
sexist. I'm suspicious of all y'all. It doesn't matter. Man, woman, old, young,
It's
don't
equal
matter. Black, white.
opportunity.
I'm
I've got
equal
it.
opportunity up in this mug. On April 13th, police, well, they were searching for her all this time. So on April 13th, police called off the ground search and allowed everyone to return back to school on the 14th. Then on April 25th, 2009, the case was actually featured in an episode of America's Most Wanted. And in that
Hmm.
episode, it reported that the initial investigation was first led by local police, which I guess that's what initial means. And then it was later turned into a joint investigation with the Ontario Provincial Police, and it changed from a missing person investigation into an abduction case. Wow. While all this was going on, a few days later, Terry Lynn, y'all remember her, was arrested and placed in the Genus Detention Center in London, still Canada, not England, because she had violated her probation. So basically,
Shame on her.
she wasn't doing what she was supposed to be doing. So basically, her probation was probably like, don't do drugs. And she probably
Right.
went right
Let's
back to
start
doing drugs.
there.
Exactly. Now, while she was in the detention center, Michael called and visited her every single day. Their calls, of course, were recorded. And what do we say here at Love and Murder about whenever someone commits a crime?
They
Shar probably
sing like
forgot.
a bird.
No. We say
Oh.
here, if you're going to commit a crime, make sure you have as much evidence on and around your person as possible. Make sure you speak openly and candidly around everyone you meet and on recorded phone lines about the crime that you committed. So if you're going to commit a crime, make sure you tell everybody and have
Don't
all
live out
evidence
any
on you.
details. Yeah.
Exactly.
Because, well,
Anyway,
that's why we call them the dumbest criminals. This is just dumb things they do.
anyway, in one call, Terry Lynn told Michael that she would take the blame if it ever came down to it. Like, that's what she said. Quote, I'm just an 18-year-old junkie anyway, so I'll take the fall for everything. So now the question is, take the fall for what?
No, yeah, I was
You
gonna
know what I'm
say,
saying?
something you
Exactly.
want to
What do
tell
you
us?
exactly like let's talk. Inmate to prison guard, I guess. Let's talk. On May 12th, this was the last time Michael came to visit her. And in that visit, she touched his face and he laughed, I guess, at her and said, quote, you'll do anything for a bit of love, eh?
Okay.
So then that was May 12th. So then May 19th, Terry Lynn said was like, hey, officer, hey, I have something to say. I have some very important information that you're going to want to know and you're going to want to take me seriously. I want to talk. So they were like, okay. So they took her to the interrogation room. And during some hours of interrogation, Terry Lynn sang like a bird.
They always do.
Always do. Now, this is what she said. She told investigators that she was the one in that video. Well, she didn't say she was in the video because she didn't know they had a video, but she was the one who lured Tori to a car where Michael was waiting. And the way she did that is she told Tori that she had some puppies to show her. The old puppy trick.
The old puppy trick, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So then when the baby got to the car, I call her a baby, but she was 8. When she got to the car, they abducted her and they got on the 401 highway and headed east. Now, listen to this crazy turn of events. They first went to Gulf. Over in Gulf, Michael stopped to buy some Percocet pills. He got that from a friend. And then he went to an ATM to take out some money. And then they went to Home Depot where Terry Lynn bought a hammer and green garbage bags. Finally,
Ew.
they drove into Wellington County countryside. In the countryside, this is where Michael raped Tori. Then he washed his genitalia with water from some bottle, so like bottled water, and then they murdered her. And this is what Terry Lynn is just telling them. So, of course, Terry Lynn
Wow.
was arrested because WTF, like, are you serious?
Yes.
And she was charged with being an accessory to murder. What were you going to say?
No, she's just like, hey, I'm just going to hand this over to you on a platter with extra sauce, and gravy and everything. Here, you can have it. I'm going to tell you everything. I mean, they didn't even have to beat it out of her. Usually, the interrogation room, you're being interrogated, but she was just like, okay, I'm just going to tell you everything. Like, I wonder why.
Usually
I
in the interrogation, the cops come to you, not you go to the cops. So,
Well, that's true.
I guess. Yeah. So Terry Lynn was arrested, of course, and charged with being an accessory to murder and also some other lesser charges. The next day, on May 20th, 2009, police, of course, visited Michael at his house. Like, hey, what's up? But when they got there, knocked on the door, everything, Michael, blah, blah, blah. His demeanor was that of cockiness and relaxation. Like he was just like,
He was like
whatever.
super chill. Like, what's up,
Exactly.
guys?
So
What's up?
the officers asked him, have you been hearing the news? Like this little girl, Victoria, is missing and everything like that. And Michael said, quote, just the stuff on the news. That's how he heard. That's what he said he heard. It was just whatever the news said. And then he said, they're like, well, why were you really tuning into this in the news? Like that seems, and he said, well, I had to keep an ear out because, I want to help. What the hell would you want to help with?
The search? I mean,
I mean,
what?
I guess. Anyways, then he just started randomly talking about all his girlfriends or some girls that he knew. And then he started telling the officers about jobs that he was working and, just started rambling on or whatever. And then the cops were like, yeah, I hear all that, but we ain't hear about you. Let's get back to Tori. Do you know who this woman named Terry Lynn is? And Michael was like, he only knew her name was Terry Lynn. He said, but I don't know her last name. So he's acting like he knows her in passing. Like, I've seen her a couple times. I know she's Terry
Yeah,
Lynn, but
she
that's all I
sounds
know about her.
familiar.
Exactly. And police were like, really? Well, she sure knows you. And they arrested him. You have the right to remain effed. I was going to say the F. The right to remain effed. And they charged him with first-degree murder and brought him down to the station. In the meantime, Terry Lynn decided she was going to help police search for Tori's remains. And of course, not by now she has a lawyer. And he went out and stated that his client, quote, wants Tori's family to know that she is trying hard to find her body. If I was Tori's
Yeah,
family,
that's
I'd be
really
like,
going to
you
put
know
me at
what?
ease.
I'd be like, you know what? Tell her to come over my house. I just want to tell her that we forgive her. I just want to have
Right.
a cup of tea with her and tell her we forgive her. Just bring her over real quick. I'm gonna
Yeah.
pour all this Clorox and bleach and everything in this
Yeah,
tea and
that's
shove it down
just
her freaking throat.
uh
Like Tori's family wants you to know that she's trying hard to find her body. How about not killing my child in the first place? Like, are you
yeah, because
expect
I
me
was
to
going
be
to say, I
grateful?
mean, the families always tend to want closure by finding the body, but that is not going to bring her back. Like, how dare you?
And again,
Suddenly
I'm
you
just
have this
like,
change of heart after the fact.
I'm I'm just like it's the lawyer stating this like she's so sorrowful and she just wants you to know that she's trying hard to find the body. I
Oh,
couldn't be a
wow.
lawyer. I couldn't be a lawyer. I'd be the
I
worst lawyer.
know.
I'd
Yeah. You was
be like guilty. Be like,
you
Kai, isn't that your
you would be
client?
like
I don't
walking
care.
up and literally
Guilty.
strangling the defendant.
I would be slapping the pop, pop, pop. How could you kill her?
You're so
Like,
stupid. What's the matter
I
with
would be the
you?
worst lawyer. Okay, now it's
Always in
interesting to
contempt.
note that neither Terry Lynn or Michael were even on the cops' radar. They, if she didn't come and open her mouth, they might have found out about them looking at the video and just doing more investigation. But at that point in time, they weren't anywhere on the cops' radar. So
Wow.
yeah. So then people are like, well, why did she just come out and say this to the cops? So one theory is that she told the cops because she heard that Michael was messing around with other women while she was in prison. Then there's another
Okay, yeah,
theory
that
that
like a
says
revenge angle. Mm-hmm.
exactly. Then there's another theory that says Michael was supposedly, well, I'll say allegedly questioned on May 15th. And then he called her while she was in prison and told her that he wouldn't be visiting or calling her for a while. And then another theory was because she thought it was the right thing to do, which I call bullshit. And I more believe the first
Yeah.
one that he was cheating on her. And she was
Exactly.
like, oh, for real? Exactly. So
Yeah,
that's the
watch
one that I
this.
believe.
Watch this.
Exact. Oh, for real? You gonna cheat on me? Oh, okay. I'm gonna show
Mm-hmm.
you hurt. Now, during the investigation, police saw Michael's Honda Civic on surveillance video, and it was near the school 3 times during the day that Tori went missing. So they don't have kids. So it's like, why are you just circling the school? Like, why are you here? You know what I'm saying? So that seems suspicious. The video also, like other videos, also showed that Michael was at the ATM. Like he pulled out the money, just like Terry Lynn said. And it
Mm-hmm.
shows Terry Lynn at the Home Depot, just like she said she went and bought those green trash bags and stuff. And the only thing is, Tori wasn't in any of the videos, but they undisputedly, is it undisputedly or indisputably? Either way, disputedly the opposite, said that, knew that she was there because her DNA was found in a blood detection in the rear of the car of the Honda Civic, of Michael's Honda Civic. So
Well,
her
too
blood was
late.
found in his
It's your
car.
blood. Yeah.
Exactly. So now what is your excuse? Like, how are you going to charm this one away? You know what I'm saying? And in one spot, there was a gym bag found in the car. And on that gym bag, Tori's blood was mixed with Michael's blood. How are you going to
Whoa.
charm that one away?
Yeah.
How?
Mr.
How are you?
Charming.
Exactly. Exactly. So then on May 28th, 2009, Terry Lynn's charges were changed to first-degree murder and an unlawful confinement charge. And then it also came out that both her and Michael were going to be tried separately, so it wasn't going to be a joint trial.
Well, what is
So they're
unlawful
still
confinement? Is that
investigating.
kidnapping? Is that the same thing?
Basically, like they were holding her against her will.
Yeah, that's kidnapping. Okay, that's the same thing.
Yeah,
I
I
just
mean,
figured it was.
just a different way
Yeah.
to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So during the investigation, because they're still investigating, because remember, they haven't found Tori yet. They haven't found any sign of her yet. So during the investigation, it was also revealed that Terry Lynn, check this out, lived only about 4 blocks from Tori's house. So she was literally their
What?
neighbor.
So she might have been
Exactly.
watching her anyway, just in general. I mean, she's a close neighbor. Like,
Who
hey, I
knows?
got one for
But
you.
that would explain why Tori went with her, because she knew her. So it wasn't like
Yeah.
she was even with a stranger. She knew her. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, she
Because in the
felt
beginning, I was like,
comfortable. Mm-hmm.
yeah, in the beginning, I was like, why did Tori go with her? But then I just chalked it up to it being children, and that's how children are. But she
I did
knew
say
this
an aunt
woman.
or a neighbor. I said it could be an auntie, mother, sister, or a neighbor. And so that's why I didn't see her as being someone suspicious as the
You
last
did say
person that
that.
they saw. Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense.
Yeah. So
Children
then
do trust their neighbors.
on July 19th, after 103 days of being missing, Detective
Hmm.
Sergeant Jim Smith reported that Tori's badly decomposed remains were found. And they were found under a rock pile in the countryside of Ontario near Mount Forest. Now, Tori's body was found in what? Green trash bags. Remember?
Yeah, well, I remember when we made that stop from
Green
Home
trash
Depot.
bag.
Yeah,
And she was naked from the waist down. She was only wearing a Hannah Montana t-shirt, and she was wearing those earrings that she had borrowed from her
they're her
mother.
mother. Yeah.
And the
Wow.
lower half of her body was just crazy decomposed. So, of course, police took the body in. They had to verify that it was Tori Lynn and everything like that. During the autopsy, it was determined that she had been beaten, and this beating was
Oh.
so severe that it caused lacerations to her liver. That's how badly this little girl was beaten. And she had 16 broken ribs,
Oh,
and
that was
she
unnecessary. Why did they do that? Ugh.
was basically beaten in the head with a claw hammer to the point that her face was just smashed in. And so they said that's what killed her. But even if that didn't happen, the laceration to her liver and her
Well,
16
yeah, of
broken
course
ribs would have
she would have
eventually
bled
killed her.
internally anyway. Yeah, she
Exactly.
was just basically suffering from every possible angle of,
That poor
torture.
child. That poor
Yeah,
child.
that's a lot. That's a lot to endure. I
On July
mean,
21st, 2009, it was confirmed that these remains were Tori's. And then, so they took Michael in for an interview. And I'm going to try and find the video of this interview and post it in our Patreon for our lambs. But apparently, this is a really, I don't even know, just this interview is 4 hours long, and people have watched it a lot. I haven't seen it, but I'm
I
very
mean, I
interested
can't
to
even
see it.
imagine. I wonder Like what's his personality though? Was he
Well,
narcissistic with
I'm
the way that
glad
he
you asked
speaks,
that
or
because it
hmm
does say. Yeah.
or his demeanor? Like what was yeah.
So I'm going to try and find this interview. No, I didn't watch it yet. Yeah, I know I didn't really do my due diligence as a true crime podcaster, but I haven't watched it yet. But this is a 4-hour long interview, and it was done with 3 experienced police officers, one of which was Detective Sergeant Jim Smith, who he was famous for getting the sex killer Russell Williams to confess to 2 murders. So he got a killer to confess, and he's in there with Michael. And Michael didn't bat an eyelid. He was just there. He didn't
Wow.
say crap in 4 hours. And the officers tried everything. They even brought in Terry Lynn and was like, "You gonna say she's a liar? You gonna say she's a liar? Tell her to her face that she's lying."
And he still didn't
And,
budge, really?
and no, he said, quote,
Oh.
"Terry is a liar." That's what he said. Wow. So at one
That
point,
is
Officer Smith said to Michael that, quote, "This is the next Paul Bernardo, whether you like it or not." So for those of you who don't know, Paul Bernardo is a serial killer. Well, it's made up of a duo. It's like 2 people, and they were serial killers. And it was Bernardo and Carla Homolka from the early 90s. And we're going to do a serial killer corner in our Patreon at some point about them. So he said, basically, you're the next Paul Bernardo, you and Terry Lynn.
yeah,
And
but that's like gloating. It makes just imagine it makes a killer feel like yeah, I can get
feel
away with
good.
this. And like I did something amazing, like I'll be super famous, and I should be like praised, and like I'm I don't know, like I just I don't like that. I mean, why would you? It's almost like you're patting him on the back and saying, "Yeah, good job,"
I don't
because
think he was trying to pat them on the back. I think he was just trying to say, like, you're gonna crack, just like Bernardo's did. You're gonna crack.
oh, I thought they were saying this case is so heinous and so disturbing, and you're just like them, and they were famous serial killers. Like I don't know, but I mean,
I mean, it
oh
could
wow,
possibly be both. I'm not sure, but I'm more thinking that y'all did a similar crime and we're gonna crack you just like we cracked them. That's what
okay,
I'm
now that
thinking.
would make more sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So then they even brought in a behavioral science detective, Detective Constable Chris Loam. And he questioned Michael several times. And he still didn't crack. He still didn't say anything.
wow,
Officer Smith
wow,
brought in pictures of Tori, the decomposed body, everything like that. Brought in all these pictures, brought in pictures of her when she was alive. Look at this cute little girl, blah, blah, blah. Shoved it in Michael's face. But he just sat there looking at the wall like, wonder what the score is in
what else
baseball
you got?
today. Exactly. It
It's
did
like
not faze him.
what?
So then after a
Wow,
while, he did look down at the pictures, and Officer Loam told him that he could choose between 2 public images of himself. You could either be seen as a cold blooded, remorseless killer like Bernardo, or you could be seen on someone like I don't know how you say this name, Briere, who Michael Briere, he had done basically the same thing, and we'll do an episode of him. So he'd basically done the same thing, but when he was caught, he apologized. Then he explained why he did it, and his reasoning for explaining why he did it, so it was so that this would never happen to another child and parents would know how to protect their children. So he was telling him you could
wow,
be seen as a
yeah,
remorseful killer
remorseful, yes,
or a remorseless killer. And
mm-hmm.
Michael was like, or I could be seen as these nuts, and he still didn't say anything. So he just was still
Yeah,
quiet.
exactly. Like it's not funny, but you're crazy.
Exactly.
Oh
So it's like
no.
no
Yeah, he
matter
just
what they
didn't break.
tried, Michael did not say anything. No, just stone face, nothing. But they were like, yeah, well, whatever. We have all the evidence we need. So On April 30th, 2010, Terry Lynn was scheduled to make an appearance in court, but a publication ban, maybe that's a Canadian thing, a publication ban was imposed by the judge on the events of the day. But then on December 19th, 2010, so that's April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, 8 months. 8 months later, the ban was lifted. And when the ban was lifted, it showed that Terry Lynn had pled guilty to first-degree murder. Now, she was then sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 25 years. I mean, there should be no chance of
But
parole.
what do you
Why'd y'all
mean for
give her
25?
25?
That's what I was going to say. If it's
No,
no
no, no.
chance,
I
it's no
forgot. I
chance.
forgot. No. This isn't the
Okay.
U.S. This is Canada. This is their
Okay.
law. They do give you chance of parole in 25 years. I forgot about that.
Then they put like a number on it, like, okay, so there is a chance.
I mean, yeah, you have a chance of parole for 25 years, but that's like, that doesn't mean you're getting out. You just have
Yeah, but what
to
is the
come in.
point of saying life then? That's not life. If there's ever a chance of
That's
parole.
Canada's law. They allow you
Okay,
to
well, all
plead your
right.
case, show that you've gotten better, and then they might let you out. So
Amazing.
she was then sent to Grand Valley Institution for Women in, oh my gosh, what's this name? Kitchener, Ontario. So then, January 14th, 2012, so this is like 2 years later, Terry Lynn, actually not 2 years because she was sentenced in January 19th. I'm sorry, in December 19th. So that's basically January 2011. So yeah, a year later. So let's say a year later, Terry Lynn decided to change her story. So she called up Detective Smith and she said, look, I want to tell y'all the truth. And the truth is, I'm the one who did all of it. I raped the little girl. I killed the little girl. I'm the one who did all of this. However, the way she was telling the story, it didn't make sense to police. So they kind of didn't
It
believe her.
doesn't
For
make
instance,
sense at all, even hearing it on my end, and I didn't even get the
well,
details.
for instance, at one point in time, she said, quote, maybe I didn't walk away from the car, but he called me back in the car. So I went back in the car and I killed her. What?
So she's really just starting to she's slipping. Look, she's losing her mind, and mentally, she's slipping away. And I think that she doesn't know the difference of reality from from
You
fact,
think that's
what
what
really
it is? Or
happened.
you think Mr. Charming, Prince Charming there was charming his way into her heart. And she was like, you know what? You really do love me. I'll take the fall for it. I really think it's not that she was losing her mind. I think that he charmed the shit out of her. On March 5th, 2012, that's when Michael's trial started. His trial was for kidnapping, sexual assault, and first-degree murder. Of course, Shar, what did he plead?
Not guilty, Your Honor.
Not guilty to first-degree murder, kidnapping, and sexual assault. He said, I had nothing to do with it. Didn't you hear what Terry
Wasn't
Lynn said? It was
me.
all her.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't me. Yeah. So then in opening statement, Crown Attorney Kevin Gowdy told the jurors that when they hear from Terry Lynn, quote, you will unquestionably be disturbed by the choices she made with Michael Rafferty to bring this all about. The jurors were also told by Ontario Superior Court Judge Thomas Heaney that while Michael may, quote, occasionally be referred to as the accused, they were to take no negative inference from the term because it is simply a label to describe one of the participants in a trial. What? Are you serious? I mean, I think that's a Canadian thing. I think that's a
Yes, I was
Canadian
just
thing.
gonna say we're already figuring out a lot of this
Wow, it's just wow.
that are just
He
really
also
strange to me.
warned to us because we're not from there.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, he also warned the jury that they will hear graphic and disturbing evidence during the course of the trial. And yeah, they heard graphic and disturbing evidence.
They
In
certainly
opening
did.
statements, Attorney Crown Gowdy said that the Crown will present video surveillance and BlackBerry records, so phone records, that show that Michael was directly responsible for Tori's disappearance, and that there were witnesses that saw Terry Lynn take Tori. There was video surveillance pathology will testify that Tori died as a result of multiple hammer blows to the head.
Ugh.
And there's DNA evidence in Michael's car linked to Tori's disappearance. So basically, they said, no matter what he says, we have all the evidence right here and we can show it to you.
Yes. I mean, try to
Now,
wiggle your way out of that one, Mr. Charmer.
exactly. Now, Tori's mother would be the first to testify, and I cannot even imagine. They also spoke to a bunch of witnesses who saw Terry Lynn with Tori today, like I said, Tori today, Tori that day, like I said, and there's a whole breakdown of the trial, which I won't go into right now, else we'll be here for another hour. But if you want to hear the breakdown of the trial, which I will go ahead and do, go ahead and join our Patreon at the $5 or above tier, and I will go into even more detail in the trial. You want to hear it, you don't want to miss it, because this was an insane trial. Just imagine, Michael wasn't saying anything in a 4-hour interview. So how do you think the trial is going to go? Yes. So
like a circus.
now, during the 10-week trial, Michael constantly, for some odd reason, chewed on ice and became as, quote, the man chewing ice in the prisoner's box. I mean, you could have kind of shortened it, but okay. I mean,
What?
and I'll
Wow.
actually, when I go into more about the trial, they actually talk more about this as well. And as you can imagine, during the entire 10-week trial, Michael didn't speak at all. At all. He just stood there staring at people or sat there staring at people, chewing on ice and all of this stuff. And remember the girlfriend he had met when they were in 6th grade and everything like that? She came in, she talked about their relationship. And when she came in, she was the only one that he was like weird. She came in and he just like piped up, sat up straight, and stared at her all the way while she walked to the stand, stared at her intensely while she was on the stand, and stared at her as she walked out. Like, what was this supposed to mean? I
I
love
mean,
you, babe.
that could be an
No,
intimidation
I don't
factor, but
think so,
that's the
because
one
remember,
that
this is the one that he said was his perfect woman.
yeah, they wrote together for all of 6
So I don't
weeks
think he
because
was
she
trying to
realized that he was
intimidate her. I
crazy.
think he was trying to charm her. Like, look, I've only got
Yeah,
eyes for you while I'm back here for child pornography, child rape. Like, are you
exactly.
serious? Anyways, during the
You
trial,
must believe
it was
me.
reported that Michael was a sexual deviant who went online for child pornography and had this weird kink for sexual choking and torture sex. Okay. I mean,
Well, you know that is a thing. I mean, it's a
yeah, it
thing.
is. He was actually really, really active on his dating app on April 9th, which was the day after Tori disappeared. And it showed that he contacted several women at the same time. And he even had sex with a woman on that day. Like, he just killed a kid and this is what he's doing.
That is so
That is
gross.
so heinous. Now, between January 25th
Yes.
and April 7th, 2009, he had downloaded a bunch of child porn onto his laptop. And if y'all want to hear a getting to know the whole story where one of us knew somebody who got clipped, I guess, for child pornography, then head on over to our Patreon and you could hear that weird story over there. On March 13th, 2009, Michael had Googled, quote, children for sale and, quote, sale of babies. What?
Oh, just when I didn't think you can get any worse.
Children for sale and sale of
Sick,
babies.
you
Like,
know?
you're kidding me. And
Mm-hmm.
then on March 30th,
Mm-hmm.
he was dating this woman. He found this woman online. He started dating her. She had a baby who was still in the crib. And he asked her if her daughter would, quote, snuggle up with us tonight. Ew. Like, if you were dating somebody, Shar, and your son was like 9 months old and he was like, hey, your son's going to snuggle with us tonight, what would you do?
I would just freak out. Like, this guy is probably a serial killer or something, you
Dude.
know? I
And
mean, yeah, that's really
even
scary.
after that, he asked her if she would give him her firstborn child. And then after they
Oh.
saw that, the next day is when Tori disappeared. So he
Oh,
was
yeah, I
building up
see
to
the
this.
pattern.
So on May 11th, 2012, at 9:18 p.m., the jury found Michael guilty of every single charge there was. Well, not there was, but what they charged him with. They found him guilty of all of it. On May 15th, 2012, he was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole, for 25 years, what they do in Canada.
There you go,
Exactly.
Canada.
And he
Mhm.
was sent to the Kingston Penitentiary. Now, this jerk had the cajones that on July 26, 2012, he appealed his conviction, stating that, quote, the judge's instructions to the jury were flawed. So that means I'm not guilty of murdering this child, because his instructions were flawed. But the 30-day deadline to do the appeal had passed. And he said, yeah, I know, because I couldn't use the phone because I was in jail. So then the court was like, well, okay, we'll give you an extension. They granted him an extension to
What?
file his appeal. Yes, girl.
All the conveniences of home in a Canadian prison,
This will not be happening in Texas
including
or Florida.
ice.
Can you believe that?
Oh, absolutely
No.
not.
On
No.
June 10th,
No.
2013, he appeared by video to plead his case. And when he turned on his camera, he just saw the judges and lawyers with the middle finger up. And they basically, was like, no, we're not. Yeah, whatever. We drew this out to make you think you had something to say, but no, F you, go back to jail.
You're going under the jail, sir.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So he's basically still in jail. Now on October 18th, why am I speaking all weird? Now on October 18th, Terry Lynn was moved from her prison to a native, how do I put this? A healing lodge of the natives in Canada. But the thing is, she tried to say she was a native, but it was never confirmed that she was a native. You know what I'm saying? And her family was
So
saying,
they sent her to a spa practically?
dude, the healing lodge, because she said she was a native. So they had to send her with her
No, I
quote.
get that part, but I'm like, that just
Exactly.
what kind of
Exactly.
reform is this?
Exactly.
Like,
And then her
okay.
family, it was not ever confirmed that she was a native. And her family members even came out and was like, we're white. Like, what are you doing?
We're not Indian, sorry.
So the lodge, the native lodge, was actually a minimum security prison. And it was
Mm.
unfenced, but they watched it 24 hours a day with video cameras. That's it. So literally, she could have just gotten up
Oh,
and ran out or whatever.
yeah.
So they went through.
She got to take a bath in some hot springs and, and a couple of
I mean,
massages
look,
and, yeah,
I mean,
that's crazy.
that's insane. But they went through a whole process of like debating this and trying to fight it. And it was actually overturned on November 7th. It did show that she wasn't a native. What are you doing out here? You killed an 8-year-old. F you, woman. Take your ass back to federal prison. And then they tightened the regulations for transferring long-term prisoners to healing lodges. So they
Good.
made it stricter. So then
Wow.
she was transferred to the multi-level Edmonton Institution for Women. And that, people, is a devastating, horrible case of Victoria Stafford. The precious baby is dead, and the two boneheads that was behind it are behind bars for life. Well, with a possibility of parole in 25 years.
What is that? Yeah, that old Canadian possibility thing is wacko, but
So,
yeah.
Shar, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us tonight. Although it was a terrible
Yeah.
case, you were here for the
Yes.
first episode of season
It was
3.
hard.
And I know,
Yeah, well, you know what? I mean, I was feeling I don't know, honored to come back. It's been a long time, and I figured if I'm going to come back, in my own honorary way, it should be a really, really gruesome case, something that I'll never forget.
well, it's
And
like we
yeah, but
always
it was
say,
it was
go
good
go big or go
to join
home,
you. Yeah, Of course, you did it really big. Unfortunately, it's all
Yeah,
true, everyone.
unfortunately, yeah.
But yeah, so this has been it's been good, to join you again. So thank you everyone for listening too, and even bearing through it with us. But yeah, I didn't know anything about the case as many times,
You don't.
on the show.
Yeah.
So
And if you still want to hear Kai and Shar, as many of y'all have been asking me for the past how many months, don't forget you can head on over
right,
to our Patreon, www.patreon.com/love and murder. And we have a new corner coming out, which is, we haven't named it yet, but basically we're reacting to court videos together.
yeah, it'll be fun, guys. Our own Kai and Shar, very twisted, sarcastic banter. You guys will love it, though.
So I know y'all haven't heard this from us in a long time, but we want to remind y'all that it's always
All
all
love,
love and
no
no murder,
murder.
y'all.
Goodbye,
Good
everyone.
night.